No, you start from the beginning. What's the beginning part of that? No, when they're talking. Yeah, that part, that's right. You give a little, I give a little.
You give a little, I give a little. Let's get it together.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining me this week as I discuss the 1961 classic, The Parent Trap, starring Hayley Mills and Hayley Mills. If you saw this movie as a kid in the 80s or earlier, there's no excuse to have thought to yourself that Lindsay Lohan was a twin because you would have known already that having one actress play both parts was the Parent Trap gimmick. As far as I'm concerned, the 1961 movie is superior to the remake. And I know there's a book out there from 1949, I believe, with a German title that translates to The Double Lottie. It's also been released as Lottie and Lisa and also as Lisa and Lottie. There have been several movies made in different countries over the years that I have not seen, and a few sequels, one of which I have seen. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Please like and share, and please leave comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this movie. I plan to talk about the remake soon. So the opening sequence is kind of cute. Several scenarios are acted out in stop-motion animation with two young girl puppets who look nothing like Hayley Mills. One is a blonde, and the other is a redhead. Maybe the animator wasn't sure if this opening credit sequence was for The Parent Trap or for Pippi Longstocking. Maybe they got confused. The movie opens with Sharon McKendrick arriving at Camp Inch. If the self-important name of McKendrick doesn't tell you all you need to know about her, I don't know what will. She demands a ventilated tent. She's not supposed to eat candy because grandmother says it's bad for her teeth. She meets her cabin mates, Betsy and Ursula. Sharon encounters Susan in the lunch line. Susan has her exact same face, obviously, since Susan is also played by Hayley Mills. Only Susan has a short haircut that apparently kids today may scoff at, but that I thought was very anti-establishment and very cool as a 5-year-old in the 80s. Needless to say, Susan was my favorite as a child. When my brother and I acted out scenes from the movie, guess who I played, and guess which role he was left with. Sharon is a prim and proper Bostonian. Susan is a free spirit from California who speaks her mind and is a bit sassy. But don't underestimate Sharon when provoked. Both girls sound like they're British. The head of the camp is named Miss Inch, and she talks like the woman who selected serial killer Rodney Alcala on the dating game. She has that same obnoxious tone of voice that's extremely patronizing. She mentions that the girls will have an upcoming dance with the Thunderhead Boys Camp, as long as they mind their demerits. So guess what's going to happen? Someone is going to get a demerit and not be able to attend. So things get frosty between the two blonde look-alike girls when Sharon is lounging on the edge of a dock with her friends, and Susan and her buddies paddle up in a canoe. Susan has the smart idea of saying Sharon looks a lot like Frankenstein. First of all, Frankenstein was the doctor, not the monster. Secondly, if Sharon looks like Frankenstein, what does that say about Susan, who looks exactly like her? And thirdly, never get into a fight with someone around water. One of Sharon's friends decides to reenact the Battle of Tippecanoe, and tip goes Susan's canoe. Now she and her bunkmates are flailing around, all soaking wet, but thankfully no freak head injury that could land someone in court for assault and possible manslaughter. That would certainly alter the tone of this Disney movie and turn it into a made-for-TV one, frequently aired on the Lifetime channel in the 90s. Susan and her friends get revenge on Sharon and her bunkmates by stealing into their cabin in the middle of the night and just making a mess out of the place. The girls, Sharon and Ursula and Betsy, as it turns out, can sleep through anything. So yeah, Sharon and her bunkmates are not prepared for inspection the next day. For the coup de grace, a pail of water tips over onto Miss Inch's head. Guess who won't be attending the dance? Sharon and her friends get back at Susan by cutting off the back of her dress while she stands on a deck talking with a boy named Wilfred. She says she's not allowed to wear lipstick at camp and she feels naked without it. I'll tell you this, she's going to feel real naked once she discovers what those meddling kids have been up to now. Sharon and Susan get into a catfight. This was my favorite scene as a child. I'm sure it traumatized many young ones to the point where they can no longer stand on a deck with their back to the railing. It's a legit trauma response, I'll bet. And maybe one day I'll Google it and confirm. The two girls are rolling around on the floor, knocking over food, making a mess. Miss Inch ends up with cake on her face. But you would think she'd give them a break because they got cake on their face too. She tells them that they will be forced to spend the remainder of camp in a cabin together, She references Let the Punishment Fit the Crime by Gilbert and Sullivan. For the longest time, I thought that was the name of the Colonel Bogey March that plays as they're marched to their new quarters. All the girls from camp follow behind, being nosy busybodies, until Miss Inch puts them in their places and tells them to scatter. While alone together during a storm, Susan's prize posters of Ricky Nelson get blown all over the floor, and while Sharon helps her pick them up, the two girls talk and realize that maybe they could get along after all if they just try. They talk about their lives in Boston and California. It eventually comes out that they both were born on the same day of the same year. Susan only has a father and Sharon only has a mother. Sharon fancies herself a psychic who gets goosebumps when something's up. Or maybe she just realizes it's strange that they're two girls who look the same and have the same birthday and have mirror image parenting situations. Maybe Susan's the one who's just dense. She shows Susan a photo of her mother, and Susan is like, "OMG, what are you doing with my mom's photo, you freak?" Okay, she doesn't say it like that, but let's just say she's shocked to discover they're not identical strangers after all, but rather identical twins. And they hatch a plan to swap places. Sharon will pretend to be Susan and meet her father for the first time since she was a baby. And Susan will go live with Mother until the parents figure out the truth, attempt to switch them back, and fall in love all over again, of course, because that's what the adults in your life do when they reconnect with a member of the opposite sex that they loved once. Or even if they never loved them once. See, It Takes Two from 1995 starring the Olsen twins for an example of that. It's pure fantasy to think the two girls could train each other on their lives so perfectly that they'd be able to fit seamlessly into each other's lives. I mean, they both have British accents, so that won't be a problem. I assume they carried photos of all their loved ones with them to camp to show each other. I don't think their mother and father would jump to the conclusion they'd met at camp and switched places. Maybe they'd just worry they'd gotten a concussion from tipping over in a canoe, and that's why they were experiencing personality changes and memory problems. But the sisters probably figured they could manage for at least a couple of days. Ultimately, they wanted their parents to reconnect anyway. While in California, Susan finds out her father is planning on marrying a bitch named Vicky. Also, the housekeeper, Verbena, minds her own business and doesn't say a word, all while spilling the tea to Susan, aka Sharon. But that sweet, tasty tea is none of her concern, just saying. Verbena is very smart, and she picks up on the fact that there's something off about Susan. The dog senses it too. Her father only thinks it's odd that she can play piano now, but thinks little more of it. Susan, aka Sharon, reaches out to Sharon, aka Susan, to let her know what's going on with Dad and Vicky. Sharon, aka Susan, doesn't think much of it and doesn't want her special bonding time with her mother to be interrupted. But eventually their grandfather catches Sharon, aka Susan, having a private conversation with her twin and figures it all out. And Sharon, aka Susan, decides it's time to tell Mother the truth. And so the second part of the Parent Trap scheme is now in effect. So I'll stop right there and just talk about some noteworthy things about the 1961 movie. Susan says dirty damn, as though the word damn on its own isn't dirty enough. Their grandmother says she doesn't like Sharon's haircut. She asks her if she's a boy or a girl, yet the grandmother has short hair too, so she's one to talk. Susan, aka Sharon, tells Vicky that she's nicely put together. I guess that's a Bostonian's way of saying someone's a babe. I'm pretty sure Bostonians don't talk like that. At least not in 2025. It's not the Parent Trap without a performance of Let's Get Together from the two sisters. As a kid, I used to sing it all the time, only I thought one of the lines was, "A Ruli Tula, we will be." I still think that's a line, and you can't convince me otherwise. The song Let's Get Together also plays briefly at the camp dance. Nice bit of foreshadowing there. I guess it's supposed to be a popular song in this universe. I love Vicky's comeuppance near the end. They go camping and the girls make her life a living hell by revealing her for the stuck-up little priss she is, who just can't cut the mustard out in the wild. I give this 1961 Disney classic 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm knocking it down a bit for Hayley Mills' poorly disguised British accent.